on 91.6 Stereo FM, 24 hours a day. This is the spirit of radio, Phantom.
Live locally to Dublin on 91.6 megahertz in stereo, into Europe on shortwave through recorded relay from Ozone Radio International, and also to the world on the web at www.phantomfm.com. This is the spirit of radio, Phantom FM Dublin. My name is Gerard Rowe, his is Pete Reid, and you're listening to the Anorak Hour. And before we get started, apologies for not being here last week. Actually, for truth be known, we were here last week, but here isn't where you last left us. We've changed studio locations since we were last along, and we were wiring up things last Sunday and hadn't got so much as a microphone together to be able to talk to you. But we're back this week anyway, and Pete will give you full details on the move later. On the programme this week, we have some Paul Kavanagh on Radio Nova in 1985, and a follow-up to a recent special edition programme on the history of the Caroline ship, the Mi Amigo. This week we'll be playing two interviews where Caroline presenters on board at the time of the sinking in 1980 give further details about the traumatic event. To mark Bob Gallico's birthday on Friday, we have a tribute item aired earlier this week on East Coast Radio in Bray when Bob and Declan Meehan were reunited to reminisce over the Brekkie-Trekkie days. We'll follow that with an interview recorded in the Queen's Pub Dalkey the Sunday following the raid on Nova in 1983, when both Declan and Bob spoke about their uncertain future to Barry Johnson of the Blackpool-based free radio information service Anorak's UK. Also some current radio from South East Ireland with a sample of WLOR FM in Waterford, and if we have time we'll also by request plug the Radio Dublin signature tune Boola Boola again, so have the tape decks on standby for that one. All that plus Pete Reid with the latest broadcast news in general and in particular what's been going on here over the past week. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, we're not on direct line on the internet at the moment, so we don't have the email facility. If you do want to get in touch with us, you can only do so locally here in Dublin on our phone line, which is now 478-0363. So take a note of that, 478-0363, and we'll open that in a moment. We're waiting on a second phone line to be installed to get the rest of the internet gizmotrology all connected up. The first item out today then features Paul Kavanagh, who recently quit his top management position with the EMAP radio group in the UK to start his own radio management consultancy company. At the moment he's working on the ILR station Radio Limerick 95, filling the position vacated by Scott Williams when he took up the reins at Dublin's new Light FM. But the mere fact that Paul Kavanagh has returned to Ireland says a lot about the development potential of the current local broadcast scene. Paul would probably be best remembered as the manager and promo voice of Sunshine Radio up until their closure in 1988, but he also worked for Radio Nova, and this sample recorded on 102.7 dates from Saturday, November the 2nd, 1985.
Superdrive on All Music Nova. I wish to point out the fact that it's raining again, even though it isn't this morning, although an amateur weather forecaster says there shall be snow by the middle of this month. So let's hope that amateur is really amateur and wrong. Coming up next, the news headlines, but first the Eurythmics with Aretha Franklin. And sisters are doing it for themselves.
Now there was a time when they used to say that behind every great man there had to be a great woman.
Today's styling, personal attention, and now highlights and streaks, 1895 Monday to Friday at Peter Mark.
It's 9 o'clock and time to think about saving with First National Building Society.
Broadcasting from Dublin on 738 kilohertz AM and 102.7 FM in stereo.
Radio Nova.
ABC Network News headlines to this hour. The Cork ESB strike is to go ahead. The striking ATGWU workers voted last night against the Industrial Council's recommendations. The Dutch government is to go ahead with the deployment of American cruise missiles. After 6 years of indecision, they have decided to accept 48 medium-range missiles in 3 years' time. TV actor and comedian Phil Silvers died last night at the age of 73. He was best known in his role as Sergeant Bilko. Between now and 10 this morning, Radio Nova will be giving away £1,000 1,000 cash. Stay tuned to find out how to win. The weather, cold and breezy with some sunny spells and showers later.
Paul Kavanagh.
Radio Nova.
The best sound in Europe, 102.7 and 738. All Music Nova, that's Starship, and we built this city on rock and roll. And I always thought we built it on the Liffey.
Radio Nova.
Don't forget, coming up a chance for you to win £1,000 within the next hour before 10 o'clock this morning. It's 16 minutes past 9, so by staying tuned, you could have £1,000 in cash from Radio Nova. It's all because we love you lots. Here comes the next number one, Rod the Mod and Baby Jane on Nova, the one and only. Back in 1983, that record got to number one in the charts, Rod the Mod and Baby Jane. 20 past 9 this Saturday morning with All Music Nova. Just in case you've been in a coma over the past week, you're going to take a look at the new British Top 10. At number 10, Alive and Kicking from those Simple Minds, and I can't say who Simple Minds remind me of. At number 9, Something About You from Level 42. At 8, the theme from Miami Vice, Wan Hammer. Election Day from Simon Le Bon and Arcadia is at number 7 this week. At 6, St. Elmo's Fire, that's John Parr. At 5, The Gambler from Madonna. 4, Nikita, Elton John. The top 3, Trapped by Colonel Abrahams is at 3. At number 2, the band from Norway, Aha, with Take On Me. And still at number 1, Jennifer Rush with The Power of Love.
Whispers in the morning of lovers sleeping tight.
Coconut Grove Parks Hotel live entertainment featuring all the top groups. Shay Healy, MPH, Paul Ashford, John the Don and Rob Strong. Sunday Jazz Spectacular from 12:30 with Hotfoot and Stotts. Remember, no cover charge. See you at Coconut Grove Parks Hotel.
102.7
Paul Kavanagh.
Radio Nova.
The American football song. That's Bonnie Tyler holding out for a hero. It's exactly 9:30. ABC Network News headlines to this hour. The Cork ESP strike is to go ahead. The ATGWU workers voted last night against the Industrial Council's recommendations. The Dutch government is to go ahead with the deployment of American cruise missiles. After 6 years of indecision, they have decided to accept 48 medium-range missiles in 3 years' time. TV actor and comedian Phil Silvers died last night at the age of 73. He was best known in his role as Sergeant Bilko. And finally, between now and 10 this morning, Radio Nova will be giving away £1,000 in cash. Stay tuned to find out how to win. The weather, cold and breezy with some sunny spells and some showers later.
Radio Nova.
Paul Kavanagh on Radio Nova in 1985, long before his long-wave management success with Atlantic 252. Now, just an update on the internet side of things. Our IT department has been on to say that through the wonders of wireless gizmotrology, if you do email during the programme, they can pass on text messages to me here in the studio, so that's a particular option for you if you really do want to get through. If you email us at the moment, our account is being monitored and the message will get through if necessary. Now, 4 weeks ago on Anorak hour number 224, we marked the 20th anniversary of the sinking of the Caroline ship, the Mi Amigo. And as we were pushed for time in trying to cram 17 years of broadcasting history from the boat into 45 minutes, there were some archive items that just couldn't be included. So to follow up, our next feature includes interviews with 2 presenters who were on board the ship at the time.
Radio Caroline broadcasting on 319 metres, 963 kilohertz. Well, we're sorry to tell you that due to the severe weather conditions and also to the fact that we're shipping quite a lot of water, we're closing down and the crew are at this stage leaving the ship. Obviously we hope to be back with you as soon as possible, but we'd just like to assure you all on land that there's nothing to worry about. We're all quite safe. Just for the moment we'd like to say goodbye. Tom?
Yeah, it's not a very good occasion, really. I have to hurry this because the lifeboat is standing by. We're not leaving and disappearing. We're going onto the lifeboat, hoping that the pumps can take it. If they can, we'll be back. If not, well, I don't like to say it.
I think we'll be back one way or another,
yeah,
Tom.
I think so.
From all of us, for the moment, goodbye and God bless.
Caroline's final sign-off from the Mi Amigo in the early hours of March the 20th, 1980. One of the voices heard on that last announcement was DJ Stevie Gordon, who spoke to UK news organisations shortly after arriving back on land.
The lifeboat man was urging us to come off, and the skipper and the sailor were down on the deck trying to pump water out. And when it seemed that it was a losing battle, that was when the decision was made, just before midnight, to come off.
With sea so rough, was it a very frightening experience moving from the Caroline onto the lifeboat?
That was probably the most frightening of it all, yes. It took probably 45 minutes or an hour to get across. The ship's canary, Wilson, we've had a canary ever since the station reopened in 1972. And this was a new one who'd only been with us 6 months. And we did manage to pass him across to the lifeboat people, happily, and he's now back on dry land.
Thinking back about it, Stevie, how do you feel about losing the Caroline? And, of course, lots of important records and archive discs.
Well, the records and the tapes are always replaceable, but the losing the Caroline is the bit that hurts at the moment, but we're not going to call it a day until the seas have moderated and we've been out to have a look for ourselves.
Do you really think that Caroline will be back one day?
One day, one way or another, I'm sure that the Caroline will be back, yes.
Stevie Gordon, who unfortunately was killed last year in a helicopter crash over Longford while he was working on a film project, speaking about his rescue from the Mi Amigo in 1980. And although Tom Anderson and Stevie Gordon were the two voices heard on the historic close announcement, there was another Caroline presenter on board at the time, but Nick Richards was otherwise occupied, as he told Sean Tilley, for a Caroline 30th anniversary tribute programme broadcast in 1994.
Sound of the nation, Radio Caroline.
Hello, Paisley, Scotland.
Well, hello there, Sean.
How are you, my old pal Nick Richards?
I'm very well, thanks, Sean.
At last, we can get all the info about the sinking of the Mi Amigo ship in 1980, because you were on there, right?
That's right. There was me and about another 3 others. It was a real skeleton crew at the time.
What happened, Nick?
Well, I'll try and tell you briefly. It's a long story, but I'll kind of bunch it all up. I got woken up around midday, and someone saying, I think the main anchor's gone, which was a regular joke everybody used to play on each other, so you didn't take it that seriously.
Yeah.
But sure enough, the anchor chain had gone. And you could tell very easily because there were navigation beacons at sea about 10 miles away, but this particular day they were about 200 or 300 yards away, so we knew there was a big problem. Also, coupled with the fact no actual main engine on the ship, no steering wheel, and a slight lack of compass as well at that particular time. So there was a spare anchor there was no problem, but it'd been so unused for so many years, it welded itself more or less with rust to the side of the ship. So that took a while to get over. Once that was down, we found out we couldn't have put the anchor down at a worst possible time. We were right above a sandbank, which was okay at high tide, but when low water, it meant we were actually sitting on the sandbank. So by the evening, when the tide started to rise again, we started to bounce on this sandbank. Although it's sand, it's very hard that far out at sea. So bouncing up and down, fair enough, it was managing to take it. The weakest point of the whole hull of the ship was the engine room, which had so many temporary patch-up holes repaired and nothing permanent, that was the point that would cause all the problems if there was going to be any. And they started to open up all the old holes. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And you have to also bear in mind, it's quite a bad storm blowing this particular time. And we let the Coast Guard know quite early what was the situation. So they automatically sent the lifeboat out, which really, it was a good thing they did. I think it must have been about 10 o'clock at night. We were taking turns on the ship's ship-to-shore radio just to check with the Coast Guard and lifeboat that we were okay. Popped my head in the engine room, and wouldn't you know it, it'd been dry all evening, but that particular time it was about 4 or 5 feet of water and rising really quickly. And that's with every pump on the ship actually going full blast to get as much water out as possible. So we decided to have a meeting, 3 or 4 of us, and we decided, like, all the pumps are going, there's nothing more we could do. We may as well close down, go onto the lifeboat, and we'll see how the situation actually stands. While the other two were doing a big close down, which has been played many times on the radio before, I was down in the engine room because I'd found another pump, and I'm trying to prime that thing. So I'm thick with oil and muck and stuff, up to my waist in water. Eventually came up into the housing area of the ship, and I hear the station theme tune, so they'd obviously closed down, done the big speech. So I turned off the transmitter, and we decided we'd all go off on the lifeboat, but not quite that easy. Being right on a sandbank and at a precarious angle and the storm blowing, the lifeboat couldn't actually come alongside. It had to skim by as close as it could get, and hopefully we could push one of us on board the lifeboat. And that took best part of an hour without the lifeboat ever once touching the side of the ship. They were masterful driving of that lifeboat. Eventually they got us all off. We stood by for about 10 or 15 minutes, and the lifeboat captain opened the hatch where we were and said, well, all the lights have just gone out on your ship. We can hang around, see if the storm actually dies down, but I don't really think it's going to. So we, without any of us saying a single word, just looked at each other and thought, well, that's probably the end of the Mi Amigo, and end of maybe Caroline for a little while. So we all went into Sheerness in Kent, I think, all very tired, wet, hungry, oily, messy, and thinking, well, maybe that's the end of our jobs for the next few years. But
Loving awareness, Radio Caroline. Love and good music, Radio Caroline. Love and good music, Radio Caroline. Loving awareness, Caroline. 319, Radio Caroline. 319, Radio Caroline.
Live from the North Sea, good music on 259 metres every night between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. on Radio Caroline.
Radio Caroline music.
Fortunes with the Caroline Sig tune down through the years, and that just about finishes off the feature on the Mi Amigo broadcast. Just a couple of items that I thought we should bring with you just to top that whole thing off, and thank you very much indeed for the kind comments that we got on that programme. Certainly a lot of people seem to think that they found it very interesting indeed. I'm sure that's what it's all about. If you learn something new every 6 months or so, you're doing all right, aren't you? Now, this week was a birthday, a fairly distinctive birthday, as he said himself, for Bob Gallico, one of the most distinctive voices himself on the Irish radio scene. And to mark the occasion, Declan Meehan got him into studio for his regular mid-morning programme on East Coast Radio Bray, where he spoke to Bob about his involvement in the Irish radio scene, and announced that in the start it wasn't really radio that brought Bob to Ireland at all. When he first began broadcasting, he was actually working as a double glazing salesman
selling windows, double glazing
selling
windows.
Yes, the original sort of.
You'd knock on the door and say, "Do you want to buy a window?"
Yeah, sort of something like that. Yeah.
Right, great.
And I had been on the road and off the road as area manager and sales manager, and back on the road. And I was in the Dublin office of Weatherglaze as an area sales manager, and I had discovered, like many people at the time, this was 1981, Radio Nova, and began listening to it, and I sort of fantasized, because I had done radio years and years before, and I'd sort of fantasized about, it'd be nice to be back on the radio again, and now there's a station I'd love to work for. Pure, daydreaming. And one morning I was in my car at 9:30. Now this was most unusual because either I'd have been in the office, the traffic pattern being what it was. I was usually in the office by 9 o'clock, or I'd be down the country somewhere, but never in the car at 9:30. This one particular morning, I was in the car, as I say, at 9:30, happened to switch on my radio, happened to tune into Radio Nova, and for the one and only time on their job spot, talking about the job slots, how useful they are, they advertised for a newsreader, because Ken Hammond was leaving, and they were looking for a newscaster. Now, this is where I believe that fate and destiny play a great part in it, because I am a great believer in it, that I was destined to do what I'm doing now. They said that if you think you have a good radio voice, I wasn't quite sure that I did at the time.
Come on, Bob, you're too modest.
I didn't, because I had only done a couple of years of radio, and nobody had said, "Hey, you have a great voice for radio, you ought to do that," And the other prerequisites for the job were if you think you can write news.
Steal the news.
Steal the news, yes. And if you can type, that was a prerequisite, because you had to sort of type your original news stories, And if you think you can do all that, make a tape and send it in to Radio Nova. So I thought to myself, for the crack, I'll do it. I had no further thought except for a bit of crack.
You were working in Weatherglaze, budding industry of people changing their windows, and there was this pirate station. It was a huge radio station.
It was,
but it was a pirate.
Yes, and it would have been
possibly no future.
Possibly no future at all, and there was a risk attached to it. But I was at that particular stage financially, and both my kids were out of school and out working, and I was able to maybe take a risk. But I hadn't thought of it as a job. It was just a bit of crack. So I went home then that day, and I got the Evening Herald and the Evening Press, as they were at the time, took some of the news stories, sort of rewrote them into radio format, spoke them into my tape recorder, and left a cassette in the next day to Radio Nova. It was Mike Edgar, actually, I think I met at the door, and handed it to him and said, "Hey, I'm just leaving this in." Fine. 3 days later, I got a letter from Sybil Fennell, who was head of news at the time, and saying, would I like to come down and talk to them sometime? So I rang her and said, well, I'm free this afternoon. I'll come down and talk to you. I went down, had a little chat, looked around the station. Half an hour later, she'd offered me a job. I said, well, look, I can't I'm an area sales manager. I have to give notice. I can't come sort of full-time immediately, but can I come at the weekends to start with? Yeah, fine. And the rest, as they say, is history. So, I was fated. That was the only time I could possibly have heard that broadcast. No other time. Now, people say, well, destiny's fate. What about free will? And what I say is, sure, I have free will. When I heard the thing, I could either do something about it or not do something about it. And I decided to do something about it.
So you started working at the weekends?
Started working at the weekends for about a month while I gave notice to Weatherglaze. And, of course, the irony of the thing is that the secure job that I left disappeared 6 months later when Weatherglaze went bust. So I went into a sort of a high-risk
So you were reading out the news one morning that Weatherglaze was closed.
Yes.
And there you were on Radio Nova.
And there I was on Radio Nova. And in fact, nobody was supposed to know about it that morning. I had never been involved emotionally with a news broadcast except that morning. And had I realized, because what had happened was that they were going out of business and they had sent letters out to everybody. But apparently, somehow, somebody leaked it to RTE. And on the 6:30 news that morning, they announced the fact that Weatherglaze was going bust. So, of course, I had to rewrite the story and broadcast. I hadn't realized that everybody in Weatherglaze was listening to me because they knew I was...
And you informed them of the good news.
I told them, I informed them of the fact that they were out of business, out of a job, yeah. I think, I'm not sure I would have been able to do that broadcast if that news item...
And, of course, from there, once you had got that job as just a straight newsreader as such, it developed from there.
Well, it did. I mean, I always felt I wanted to do things like comedy and so forth, as well as doing news and other types of broadcasting and so forth. And it just developed from there. And then I met this fellow, Mayan or something. Oh, yes, Declan Meehan.
It was me, Bob.
Oh, was that you?
Yeah,
was that you? Oh, you look different in them days. Younger. So did I. And it just developed from there.
Yeah, and in fact, we had a particular program together.
We did indeed.
Which used to be introduced by a particular jingle, which I'm going to play for you now. Oh, my gosh.
Time to wake up. Shake off the blues and laugh at the days. It's a decky wacky breakfast trekkie. Makes you feel bright and gay. Oh, really? Joy in the fun. Eat up your cornflakes, welcome the sun. It's a decky wacky breakfast trekkie. Makes you know your day's begun.
Oh, yeah, Tony Allen. Wonderful. Oh, that takes me back a year or two.
I'm going to take you back as well to something you contributed, which became your signature tune as such, Bob.
Oh, yes.
And you might be wondering why we're talking to you at this time.
Yeah, why are you talking to me at this time?
Well, you see, we believe it's your birthday today.
Oh, you nuts.
Happy birthday
Oh, my
to you. Happy birthday to you.
No.
Happy birthday, Bob Gallico. Happy birthday to you.
Hooray! Hooray! And cakes and... You have to blow out the candles, Bob. We didn't find as many. The shops ran out, right? They've only got a certain amount in stock.
Okay, I'll go in there. How on? Bring it over. Bring it over.
Hey, one bread. And some champagne glasses, too?
Oh, lovely. Oh, you're too kind.
It is a significant birthday, however, Bob.
Yes, it is, and we won't mention what's significant.
But as I was mentioning there was one particular song that you've become synonymous with because you even got it revived as in an ad.
That's
recently.
right. That's right, yeah. It's one of my great failures.
Well, I've managed to go through the archive.
Oh, lovely.
And I found the original.
Can I sing along with it?
How's the voice these days?
Oh, pretty good. I'll add another line of harmony.
You won't remember the names.
Oh, I will, you know.
You won't remember the DJs.
Yes, I will.
One is with FM, one is with 2FM.
Tom Hardy, Gareth O'Callaghan, Tony Gareth, who's known in those days. LJ, John Lewis, Declan somebody.
Chase the Pace.
Jason Maine.
Anyway, they're all in here. We'll have a listen.
All right.
Bob Gallico about 16 years ago.
Put a tendy in the telephone and dial up Radio Nova. Got a busy line. Each time I dial 604-043, I didn't get a DJ, just a busy line. I've tried ringing Decky Wecky on his morning brekkie tricky. Tried Tom Hardy during his phone, a favorite spot. I've tried Tony while he's cruising till my dialing fingers bruising. Although Jason Maine, my coin was in the slot. So then I thought the thing to do is stay up late and ring John Lewis. I was there until the sun began to shine. No request have I had yet, cause all I ever get is that busy line.
See, I remember them all.
Cheers.
You know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to get a clean copy for the Anorak stations.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, tell us the story of how that came back into prominence on Ad Break recently.
Well, Hugh McAvoy, who owns Talk to Me Phones, remembered the song from the Nova days. He'd been a Nova listener. And he was trying to think of some kind of, jingle or thing he could do for his ad. And he remembered that, and he rang me up and said, would I be interested in doing an ad based on the Busy Line thing? I said, I think so, yes. So he had written the parody, the words to it, and so I went in and did it, and we did it for about a year, a lot of different versions of it. It was great.
Yeah. How did this, I should ask you how it came about in the first place.
Well, as you know, I began singing, what passes for singing, on the breakfast show. I think I did, the first thing I think I did was the Sting song, Spread a Little Happiness, remember? And then I did a Billy Fields.
Bad Habits.
Bad Habits, yeah. And then I heard this recording of Peter Skellen's of Busy Line, and it immediately occurred to me, Busy Line, Radio Nova, ring it up, because I'd always sort of written parodies through my life of things, and it just started from there. So I wrote it and got the record, and found happily that there were certain sections of it that I could use as a background in an introduction. So we chopped it up and did it sideways. And I went in the studio and did it. And it just took off from there. I didn't expect it to, go as big as it was. It was just a bit of fun.
Yes, I'd just like to inform our listeners that Bob insisted on singing it at our wedding. My wedding.
And various other locations.
You couldn't take Bob Gallico anywhere without his busy line. Anyway, from Nova you moved to
Q102, and then to Treble TR, and then to Nowhere when, of course, the stations changed when they closed down. I'd closed down more stations than you've had hot dinners,
And then you moved actually to
Century.
Yes.
Yeah, and had the 2 years there. And as I think I said before, one of the happiest memories I've always had of Century was being sent to Disney World. Forced to go to Disney World and spend a week there, which was great fun. And then when that closed, I did a few other things for a couple of years, various and severe things. Survival, I think it's called. And then I was Radio Ireland for 6 months. But before that, I had joined East Coast Radio to do the classical show, which I've been doing, now for about 2.5, 3 years, and thoroughly enjoying.
And there's no sign of retirement at all with Bob Gallico?
What's retirement? That's when you go to bed at night, isn't it? None whatsoever. I love what I'm doing. I have no intention of retiring. As I think I said to somebody once before, the way I think I want to go is I'd like to be working for a radio station someday and doing news, and in the morning come along some morning and say, morning, it's 9 o'clock, and the station so-and-so, and here's Bob Gallico with the news. And the headlines, newscaster Bob Gallico died this morning.
Yes.
So dying with their boots on or dying with your voice on. No, I have no intention of retiring whatsoever. I love what I'm doing.
Well, long may it continue, Bob.
Thank you very much.
And I've enjoyed working with you all those years.
And so have I. It's been. I mean, we've three different stations we've worked together, which is wonderful. Long may it continue.
I enjoyed the Radio Nova days particularly.
Yes, they were. I mean, they were great memories and great days.
I'm delighted making a star of you. And
that's very kind of you. I mean, what would I have done without you?
Bob Gallico on his birthday. Thank you very much indeed, Bob.
And thanks to everybody here at the station for a nice little surprise.
You're welcome. Okay, that's Bob Gallico.
That was Bob Gallico and Declan Meehan back on the air together on East Coast Radio in Bray last Friday to mark Bob's birthday. And Bob, if you're listening or anybody out there knows of him and get a message to him, tell him that all the other guys on the other side of the fence send him his our best wishes as well. He's a voice that I remember listening to from the very early days, from his start on Radio Nova. And the one thing that always struck me about Bob Gallico is that he is a man that whether he's reading the news or doing the comedy items, it is so obvious that he enjoys what he's doing, and it's a joy to listen to him. So congratulations, Bob, and the best of luck for the future. Now, Declan and Bob worked together on Radio Nova as well, as they said there, and in the mid-1980s they were presenting Dublin's most popular breakfast show on Nova up until the morning of Wednesday, May the 18th, 1983, when the Gardaí knocked at the door and put the station off the air. Nova returned the next morning, but when Sunshine Radio was then also hit at around 11 a.m, Nova announced its legendary shutdown for 6 p.m. that evening. On the Sunday following all this hectic activity, the Nova crew assembled in the Queen's Pub in Dalkey to reassess the situation, where Bob and Declan spoke to Barry Johnson of Anorak's UK at the time, when their radio features looked very, very bleak indeed.
Right, we find ourselves now in the Queen's Hotel here in Dalkey, and we seem to have found two celebrities, superstars, mega Anoraks, mega stars with Bob Gallico and Declan Meehan.
Can you clear this with our agent?
Yeah, but why did you include him first? Now, I think we ought to have a few words at you. What's your opinion, Bob, on the happenings of the last few days? I mean, what do you think about it?
It's very hard to put into words, Barry. I've never been through a situation like this in my life. I've never known such emotions, such ups and such downs. I really... Oh, that was pretty, that light, yeah. I feel really drained. I feel great. I feel wonderful. To know you have that many friends out there, people that support you and then like you. It's really very hard to put into words, even at this stage. Maybe in a couple of weeks when I think back, I'll be able to put it into words. But it's been fantastic. The support has been absolutely incredible.
Oh yes. Look, we've been interrupted by yet another.
Listen, everybody kept saying to me that my shark.
Oh yes, it's live. Come on, yes, you've done it now.
Barry,
yes, you've got getting away now.
Barry, everybody's been telling me that my shark machine that I carry around, which is a twin deck like this, with only about
half the size was big. Compared to that, mine is just a little, tiny little handkerchief. What an incredible thing.
Right, a few words from Tom Hardy. We've got Tom Hardy with us now.
Not so much a tape recorder, it's more like a sideboard.
Yeah.
Where's the drinks cabinet?
A few words from Tom Hardy. What have you got to say, Tom? You can speak into that microphone there.
Testing, brothers.
Yes.
Can you hear us at back?
You can indeed.
I've nothing to say.
What's your opinion on what's happened in the last few days? Are you shocked at what?
Devastating. The last 5 days have been a total blur. I'm not sure whether it's what's happened or whether it's been the drinking, but it's been a total blur.
I think that's applied to everyone who's been into radio, whether you've been on this side or over on the other side. But
very upsetting.
we've stood here for 5 minutes, and the main man is stood right alongside me. Declan Meehan, what's your opinion of the things that's happened in the last few days? How do you feel?
Well, totally inevitable. It had to happen, but the unfortunate thing about it was that there is nothing to go to. And I think the more logical thing to happen was that had they evolved the legislation and we actually had some jobs to go to in September.
That would have been the wise thing to do, wouldn't it?
I would have preferred a more creative attitude from the government who actually said, right, RTE must own 40% of Radio Nova. And it would have gone on to Chris and said, right, we're going to close you down or RTE own 40%.
So at the moment you find yourselves on the dole virtually. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, we're on the dole. We live through the situation that we always knew we were illegal.
Yes.
I think it's just very sad because this is a flower of creativity that has been stifled.
It's been a wonderful. It's been a. How did he describe it the other day? The great radio experiment.
Yeah, it's a sad way to end the experiment.
It is indeed.
It's all right. It's the end of one era. It's the beginning of another. The question is how long before the next era begins. If the government has its way, there'll be a large pause for station identification. A very long pause for station identification.
True enough, Bob. I mean, I certainly do not subscribe to radio stations starting up which will do 1 hour documentaries on dogs lost and have Mrs. Jones down the road who has a lovely garden. Okay, let's do a whole day featuring her garden. And that's unfortunately what they seem to be talking about.
That's what they're heading for, and really it's up to people to, if that's what they want, that's what they'll get. In the end of the day, always, people get what they want, people get what they don't show their support for. I think the feeling that's around at the moment is quite fantastic. If it's kept up, if people really needed it, it's not just a thing of the moment, an emotional thing for Radio Nova or Sunshine or whoever. If it's an absolutely genuine need that has to be filled, and if people really believe it, then things can be changed. But they're going to have to be changed pretty quick.
Yeah, it's good to see people making a living out of it. I mean, there's a fellow in Blackpool, Barry Johnson, who makes a fortune.
I know that. I just paid $3.50 for a T-shirt.
Yeah, but it's a good T-shirt.
I'm afraid to wash it now.
Wash it inside out. Inside out.
Inside out what? Oh, inside out.
Inside out. Not inside the washer, not outside. No, turn it inside out.
I shall wear it with pride, Barry. I really will.
I really hope you will. We have a lot of expense with involving Anorak's UK, as you could possibly imagine.
Sure.
The trips across to Ireland, people may suggest that they're not necessary, but how do you get the real truth unless you speak to the real people? I mean, okay, you must come and speak to the people. Plus, the fact that the togetherness over here is really something that needs to be experienced.
I quite agree with you, Barry. I mean, we always appreciate your coming over. We know the interest you have. And without the support of fans, Anorak, call them what you like, without the people, we haven't got anybody to listen to us. We haven't got the job. We haven't got a voice.
That's absolutely great. Thanks very much indeed. Bob Gallico and Declan Meehan. Thank you, Declan.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Bob Gallico and Declan Meehan speaking to Barry Johnson of the Anorak's UK programme back some time ago at this stage, May 1983. And Barry used to be around the Dublin scene and indeed the whole country scene quite a bit, collecting information for his weekly newsletter, and was an absolute mine of information in the early 80s for the entire Irish radio scene. Final item on the Anorak section, the archive section rather, for this week's programme is a sample of what's going on at the moment down the southeast. This is WLR FM in Waterford.
Broadcasting from the radio centre in the city and from Harbour Bay, Dungarvan. This is WLR FM. First with the news for Waterford.
And thank you for that, John. Take a look at Waterford's weather. Tonight will be mainly dry with clear spells at first. Some patches of mist and fog developing. Rather cool with lowest temperatures about 4 to 7 degrees Celsius. But during the night, cloud will gradually increase from the west. It'll become a little bit milder. Tomorrow, Sunday, will be mostly cloudy, though a few bright spells may develop. After a mainly dry morning, some rain and drizzle will edge in during the afternoon and evening. It'll be quite mild with light west to southwest breezes and maximum temperatures tomorrow expected of about 11 or 12 degrees. And that's pretty much as it looks. A detailed forecast may be obtained by dialing Weather Dial on 1550 123 850. Calls that cost you 58p per minute, including VAT. Yeah, a cracker of a song to get us underway for this Saturday night. It's the Late Night Radio Show, and it's myself, Oliver Carl, with you between now and 2. Getting us underway, there was Meatloaf and Cher with Dead Ringer for Love. Thanks a lot to Jonathan Ryan for the last 3 hours of musicality, and he'll be back on a radio near you here in Waterford's biggest and best WLR-FM in the not-too-distant future. From the album Original Musicarium Part 2, there's Stevie Wonder and That Girl. Ahead of that, with some good soulful music as well from Donnell Jones and You Know What's Up, taking us to about 70 minutes after the hour of 11 on Waterford's biggest and best WLR-FM. It's the Late Night Radio Show, and it's Oliver Carl with you between now and 2. A very good night to you. Don't forget, if you'd like to say hello, maybe just hear your favorite song, you can call us on 0518-72248, 058-43951, or you can email the studio directly at studio@WLRFM.com.
This week on your local television programme, Waterford at 8, we've highlights of President McAleese's visit to Waterford. There's the civic reception awarded to Redmond O'Donoghue, and Mags Murphy visits Sister Imelda's Sacred Heart Daycare Centre. For sports fans, Ray Scott has hurling from the Fitzgibbon Cup, snooker, and the WLR-FM Lawlers Hotel GAA Awards. Plus, there's an interview with Brendan Boyer and another recipe from top chef Paul Flynn.
Waterford at 8, presented by Liz Reddy, produced by WLR-FM. Every Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday night at 8 p.m. on Cable Link and MMDS.
That's a lady who celebrated her 36th birthday only last Friday. That's Nana Cherry and Woman. Also before that, we took a listen to All EM. They make some great music, don't they? That's the latest called The Great Beyond. Well, currently doing the rounds by a dance group called Wisdom is a version of Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. And given that it's getting so much airplay at the minute, I thought we might just take a listen to the original title track from the album of the same name. Here is Michael Jackson and Off the Wall, WLR-FM. Michael Jackson from the album Off the Wall, the title track of, when he pretty much looked like, like God intended. It's 28 minutes away from the midnight hour on Waterford's #1 radio station, WLR-FM. After the break, it's back. We'll get some music from ABC. I'll also be taking a look at tonight's lottery results.
Imagine if you plucked up enough courage to call the Samaritans and nobody answered the phone. People believe a Samaritan will be there for them 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. But that's only possible if we have enough volunteers to answer the phone. And at the moment, we urgently need more. If you think you can help us, please phone the Waterford and South East branch on 051-872-114. That's 872-114. Alternatively, write or call to 16 Bow Street, Waterford. Preparation is given to all suitable volunteers.
Waterford's WLOFM with a classic memory from ABC, Martin Fry, and Going All of My Heart. Now taking a check on those lotto results as promised. Well, the jackpot itself is for a cool £1,619,536 to the penny. The winning numbers were 22, 24, 27, 32, 34, 40, and the bonus number was 41. And those numbers once again, 22, 41, 27, 32, 34, 40, and the bonus number was 41. And it doesn't actually say whether there was a specific winner or not. Match 5s plus the bonus, I can tell you, are worth £7,500. Strictly match 4s plus the bonus are worth £100. And match 3 plus the bonus are worth £15. Keeping you in touch, WLOFM.
Jerry Wilson sounded like Oliver Carroll on Waterford local radio, recorded on Saturday, March the 11th last. And it was interesting to note the regional cable link local service being provided on TV in the area. Now, the quality of that item wasn't the best, and I apologise for that, but it was because it was actually recorded on location in Rosslare in County Wexford, which is slightly outside of WLR's remit area, but nevertheless quite a good signal into that part of the world. Now, Pete hasn't quite got himself organised to call in at the moment. I'm sure he'll be here in a sec, but for just while we're waiting on there, we will actually play the Boola Boola item that I didn't think we were getting around to. Going to fade that down because Mr. Reid is on the phone. I wonder will he have the nerve now to tell you why he was actually late ringing in. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, we'll see. But anyway, it's that time of the programme. Pete Reid is along with all the very latest radio news.
When the news happens, you'll hear it first right here. Stay tuned.
Of course I have the nerve.
Go on, tell them.
Yeah, I forgot the phone number. I only installed the phone the other day and I'm thinking 478 476. No, I've no idea what it was. And eventually it came to me and just as you were finishing the WLR link there, like, you know,
yeah.
Obviously the phone's off the hook at that stage. But you're not to worry, what can you do?
There you go.
Yeah, nothing is the end.
These things happen.
And apologies if the phone link is any very, very scratchy today, but we're, as we may know, so we might as well explain this now. Phantom, as you probably know, since last June, have been broadcasting from a premises in Grafton Street in Dublin city centre, but the lease on that premises has expired, so we were due to move at the end of February. So last week we eventually moved.
Bang on schedule.
Bang on schedule as always. We moved to our new studio location, which we're currently in the process of fitting out, and luckily we've got lots of leeway to play around with this building that we're now in. So we've been in the process of building 2 studios at the moment, one of which will be a production studio, and we also have another few plans for that little studio as well, and the second one of which will be our main on-air studio, on which we will be starting work later on this week. And hopefully have that done in 2 or 3 weeks. So that's why we were off air for a period of last
just 8 days, wasn't it?
8 days, yes. Well, pretty much, Tuesday to Wednesday. We were off the air. We managed to get everything moved from Grafton Street, and then the sort of partitioning and all sorts of stuff built. Got the electric sorted out and the plumbing, which were 2 very important things that I think had to be done before we went anywhere. So it's been working on trying to get those sorted out. So that's now done. And we're now broadcasting today from the production studio, and reasonably as normal, subject to interruptions over the course of the next couple of weeks, and possibly this afternoon as well at some stage. But if it is, it should hopefully only be for a fairly short period of time as well. But we'll keep you posted on anything as it happens there as well. So apologies for a couple of things that were interrupted. The internet broadcast were interrupted briefly, but should be sorted out again now. And of course, stuff like the webcam and the direct email to the studio isn't available at the moment, but should be available again now in about a week or two's time, probably.
Well, that's what they tell us.
Yes. But that's dependent on our beneficent telecoms provider, Aircom's coming along with the necessary gizmotrology to give us that sort of service. So we'll work on that. But that's the situation as is at the moment, and hopefully we'll get everything sorted out and done and built in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I suppose, Jerry. Yeah.
Hopefully another few long nights and working through the night in store again, I think.
Oh my God, no.
What time do we finish up here on Wednesday?
About 2:30.
2:30, yeah.
Yeah, 2:30, and then drop Jerry back to Wicklow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just all great fun, but still. Sure, what can you do? Yeah, but while we're rebuilding, 2FM we're relaunching.
Yep.
Yes, and of course there's been heaps of press coverage and TV and radio coverage about this, but just the one bit that we're going to take is just a piece that was in the Sunday Business Post today. The 2FM shakes up its image to lure back young listeners, with a picture of Uni Fitzsimons, Liam Thompson and Eleanor Collier at the new look 2FM launch. Now the contrast between old and new is evident at the unveiling of RT's new 2FM look at a swish party in Ocean Conrad Gallagher's new restaurant. The younger set led by John Clark, that crazy kid, the youthful station head.
They didn't say that, did they?
No, the younger set led by John Clark, the youthful station head,
right.
And presenters like Unine Fitzsimons contrasted with the older face of the station. The aging profile of presenters, I'm sure John Clark would be so flattered by that.
He will, yeah.
Deadly.
Deservedly so.
Exactly. The aging profile of presenters like Jerry Ryan, Dave Fanning and Larry Gogan, who was broadcasting the Roadcaster outside the restaurant, was referred to by Clark in a print interview. He said he didn't want the station's audience to slip into middle age because the presenters were aging by the year, and so was their dialogue. With 3 new stations on the horizon, including the youth-based Spin FM, 2FM knows it has to shake up its image, particularly in the Dublin area. Since 1995, 2FM has lost out to its independent rivals FM 104 and 98 FM. Last year, 2FM had an average weekday listenership of 24% in the 15 to 34-year-old category, compared to 40% of the same category in 1995. Its rival F104 had a whopping increase in listeners between 95 and 99, rising from 37% in 1995 to 49% last year. 98 FM was much slower, up from 35% to 39% over the 4 years. These figures may mean little to listeners trying to find the newest sounds on a music station, but they mean everything to stations trying to capture a slice of the lucrative Dublin advertising market. In the younger market in Dublin, 2FM certainly have their work cut out for them, says Paul Moran, who's managing director of MediaWorks' own DCB, particularly keeping in mind the new competition on the way from Light FM and Spin. Describing the new schedule and logo as a welcome development, Moran said RTE should continue to review all its products, including 2FM, to see how they can maintain and possibly grow audience in the face of new competition. The news for 2FM outside the capital is better, despite the fact that there are now 21 local stations and, in recent years, Today FM, all looking for listeners. While 2FM had a 34% share of adults nationally and 53% of 15 to 34-year-olds across Ireland in 1990, and now is 28% of all adults and 45% of the 15 to 34-year-olds. It's not that significant a drop, says Moran. Nationally, 2FM will continue to do well because most local stations outside Dublin are focusing on a chat-oriented formula aimed at a broad market base, while 2FM is focusing on the 15 to 34 or even up to 39-year-olds category. But Moran also thinks that Today FM will continue to make inroads in areas outside of Dublin where there's been a limited choice for young people in terms of music-based stations. Across the country, 2FM continues to be a popular choice among 15 to 24-year-olds who make up 23% of the adult population. In 1995, 39.8% of the 2FM weekday listenership nationally were from this age group. By last year, the figure had risen to 40.5% of 2FM's audience. 89 and 90 were the launch years for a number of the new local independent stations in Ireland, so it's only to be expected that RTE Radio 1 and 2FM would experience some audience decline as these new stations established a presence in the market. But that's the all-new 2FM, Ger.
Interesting.
Have you been listening?
I have, yes. And not a dramatic change, I would say. Certainly on the music policy, it's leaning towards the... would it be more dance-orientated, maybe?
I wouldn't even say dance.
No, but poppy probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I don't know, I don't think it's as radical a change as they would like to make it out to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I suppose a lot of it is about image, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's about the perception of the change rather than the change itself. So best of luck, and we'll see how they get on. But of course, it brings up the hoary old chestnut again, Ger, of should 2FM be doing these mad relaunches in order to get the biggest audience possible, or should, because under the public service remit, should they be sort of trying to get a balance between getting as many listeners as possible and then doing as much varied stuff as possible then maybe later on in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, so once again, that's a debate that has been ongoing, I think, since the very, very early days of RT Radio 2.
Since the day they dropped Pascal Mooney and people like that.
Exactly. So that is one that will continue on, and we'll wait and see how it develops. We'll wait and see. Now, on to more immediate matters, and there's a very, very interesting article in the Sunday Tribune last week, which is too long for us to read. We just don't have the time of the programme today to read that out, but if you can get your hands on a copy of that, if not, we'll stick a scanned version up on the webpage at some stage during the week. Basically going through the various letters that have been sent back and forth between Pulse, Storm and the RTC. More importantly, I think in this case it was more or less between Storm and the RTC and Spin over the awarding of the licence. And of course the case is due for hearing on the 2nd of May, but the big not stumbling block, but one of the many stumbling blocks along the road has been the issue of costs and how companies are covered. And basically the judge in the High Court, the judge who's going to be hearing the case, said that Pulse had to pay £100,000 and Storm FM had to pay £50,000 towards the cost because of the fact they're only shell companies, so they don't have any assets. So to cover the cost. This was appealed by Pulse to the Supreme Court, and the result of that was published in the Irish Times just yesterday. Pulse FM, an unsuccessful applicant for a youth-oriented radio licence in Dublin, has lost its Supreme Court appeal against having to lodge £100,000 in court before challenging the granting of a licence. Costs arising from the appeal were awarded against the consortium. The application for a judicial review of the granting of a licence to Spin FM, a consortium involving Dennis O'Brien, by the IRTC, is now due to be heard in May. Pulse FM, a consortium including U2 manager Paul McGuinness, must lodge the £100,000 in court by Tuesday week if it still wishes to go ahead with the case. Pulse has to lodge two sums of £50,000 to cover respectively the potential costs of the IRTC and Spin FM. Storm FM, another unsuccessful applicant, was ordered by the courts to lodge £50,000 to cover the potential cost of Spin arising from its involvement in the case being taken against the RTC decision. Storm, a consortium involving nightclub owner John Reynolds and U2's The Edge, had earlier been ordered by the High Court to lodge £50,000 to cover the potential cost of the IRTC. So it's going to be an expensive case to bring, and we'll know by Tuesday week as to whether the case goes ahead or not. But I think it would be very, very important that the case would go ahead, because there are very important questions to be answered about how we regulate and how we award licences, and not even just in broadcasting, but procedures in general in this country.
Definitely, yeah.
It's a very important legal issue that have to be answered, and if it was the whole thing was to fall and the Commission were to be allowed to continue in their current mode of operations on the grounds of this, I'd be very, very, and I'm sure a lot of people would be very disappointed, and broadcasting in Ireland would be very much the poorer of it. So let's hope that they do get that money in for Tuesday week, and we'll let you know, of course, on the Anorak Hour. Right, a couple of more things to squeeze in before we go off today. We got a couple of calls about RNI.
Right, yes.
From the older members of our Anorak audience who are saying that you're wondering, was RNI's RSL licence back on? Well, they came back on. RNI took to the air at midnight on the 11th of April 2000 with test transmissions, which were due to continue until 6 a.m. when Paul McLaren would open RNI with the breakfast show. Continuous music was heard on 1575 kilohertz just after midnight, but the signal strength was very poor and the transmitter left the air several times for tuning adjustments. Tests were abandoned at 1:30 a.m. as the antenna array was making contact with the original ship's mast, causing it to detune. Modifications were carried out during the morning and further test transmissions continued from around midday. However, this time, further problems were encountered with the new studio mixer, resulting in poor quality audio, and the station left the air at about 15:30. The ex-Laser 558 mixer used during last summer's broadcast was delivered to the Trinity House Pier in Harwich, but sea conditions were too choppy to transfer it over in the small dinghy which is used to service the ship. The replacement mixer was put on board on Wednesday morning, and test transmissions were in progress by lunchtime and continued until 8 p.m. when RNI closed down, announcing that full programmes would commence the following day at 6 a.m. RNI opened at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning with Paul McLaren on the breakfast show. The other presenters heard so far include Paul Graham, Dave West and Phil Mitchell. Obviously not Phil Mitchell from EastEnders, of course. Every evening at 8 p.m. there's an hour of the Beatles and Rolling Stones music with Paul McLaren, and at midnight, North Sea by Night takes the air with a rock format. It's hoped RNI will go 24 hours at the weekends with Colin Lamb's progressive rock show on midnight on Saturday and Sunday, and the return of Skyline on Monday morning between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. And if you can't hear the station on medium wave, you can keep an ear out for them on the internet as well. And if you want to go to the website for RNI, it's www.lv18.freeserve.ie. www.lv18.freeserve.co.uk, and then you can go and you can listen to Radio North International live on the internet as well.
Very good. Any mention of Alan West on that report?
No, nothing there as of yet, but I think there's 28 days. I'm sure there's a lot will happen over the course of the 28 days.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll keep you posted on what is going on. Anyway, still no other word, incidentally, from the other group who are involved in offshore broadcasting. Well, that's the Pirates for Peace project, who were due to have been in Ireland this week, but we've heard nothing from them so far. Once again, we'll keep you posted on that one too. Now, also mentioned during the week that back in Dublin, anyway, that Hot Radio were finally to get a frequency on the eastern half of the city, with using the transmitter that was due to be used for Fantasy FM on 88.1. Of course, there's currently broadcasting at 99.4 from the western half of the city, but now to broadcast on 88.1 from the east, and it would be good to hear that. And for the first time to have a signal like that, through all the projects, there's never really been a signal on this side of the city, so we will wait, and we'll wait progress from 88.1 FM. Another station heard during the week, we were mentioning all the MAD and systems and whatever else they were called, Space, wasn't it?
Yes, Space.
Over the course of the week, we've got a lot of people asking us to ID the station on 107.0, and I think now that it's called Space FM. You know, but having said that, I couldn't be absolutely sure of the name of it at the moment, but we will include it in the next band scan that we do anyway, and we'll let you know what the current position of 107.0 is. But it's one of those, it's a bit too close to TCR and a bit too close to the special event license stations as well, of which there are one or two due on. I think Pierce College are due on now in the next week or two, amongst others. But as always, go and take a look at the IRTC page there with the details, irtc.ie/f-events.html, and that will give you details on what is going on with the special event licenses. So that's around about the 103.8 and the 106.8 area of the band as well. ESG continuing on 93.8, 94.1 and 99.1 at the moment. Of course, 99.1 is due to be home to Galaxy Dancer, the Galaxy Dance project, starting off very shortly indeed as well. So you'll be able to hear ESG on the two frequencies, but things seem to be continuing as normal there at the moment. Another few unidentified stations bopping around the band at the moment for you here. There's been tests from Justin Dawson's Extreme FM on 101.8 over the course of the last week or so as well. Once again, a bit of a mad channel squashed in between Near FM, who are on 101.6, and of course the cable link relay of Classic FM on 101.9. So not sure how long the Extreme will last on that particular channel. But I think that was pretty much it that we had for you for this week. There's some more bits, but we'll hold them over until next week's programme. But we did want to bring you the 2FM and the Pulse stuff on today's show. Okay. So hopefully we'll be back again and things back to normal again next week. And thank you indeed for all the people who did ring in inquiring as to our whereabouts last week, and people offering reception reports and technical help and all sorts of stuff this week. All very much appreciated as always.
I probably need it as we go on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, that's it for this week. Another Anorak Air 1 to 2 next Sunday.
Okay, talk to you then.
See ya.
Bye-bye. And with that, we head off for another week. If you're listening on the shortwave, we'll hand you back to Prince Terry on Ozone Radio International and thank him very, very much indeed for the relay. We'll talk to you again next Sunday between 1 and 2. And if you do experience any technical difficulties this afternoon, where we will be doing some more engineering work and we may possibly be off the air, or reduction in quality as we work on that, so just bear with us throughout the rest of the afternoon. Phantom 91.6, stay tuned here. We'll talk to you next Sunday between now and then. Goodbye, good luck and good listening.
Yeah.